Hello, everyone. Good day, everyone. Welcome to the Uno live stream. This is going to be a live coding stream that I'm doing every Tuesday. Well, the past two Tuesdays we're busy with something else. Last week I did an appearance in um, the the Visual Studio Toolbox. I was looking for the Visual Studio Toolbox with a few folks on Microsoft. That was a good one. It's on Twitch. It's on Twitch on YouTube. So if you want to take a look at that, so there was a lot of fun. Hello, Bill Kalk. Nice seeing you here. Today we're going to be doing a few things and having some fun with poking at new stuff from Microsoft, and especially with their new release that they had today, which is 16.10 Preview 1. That was just available, and 16.9 that has just been released. So we're going to be testing a few things, and the reason we're pretty interested in that release specifically is that there are some fixes that are supposed to be included in that release. So we're going to take a look at that and see if they've been included there. So that's going to be an interesting thing. And then afterwards, we're going to take a look at an application that I've been started. I've actually started in the stream before, which is the Skia Sharp Fiddle, which is an application that uses Skia Sharp and the C Sharp Rosin compiler running inside the browser. And we're going to try to make that run a bit more. So see where that's going. So let's take a look at 16.10. So 16.10, I've installed that just before. So was feeling a bit adventurous, so I tried to install that, and it looks like it started pretty well. So we'll see that if that goes properly. So there's that. So there's 16.10. There's quite a few things that have been added there, but so 16.9, a few things that are quite interesting with .NET productivity that have been added, but on the 16.10 side, they've added probably lots of new things, but they're not mentioning it that much. So we're going to try to figure that one out. Okay, so what we're going to do is just create a new project in Visual Studio and see where that goes. So we're going to create a new Uno project and see if that helps. So lots of people have been asking about, when you're opening a file on iOS or Android or any other targets, then the IntelliSense was behaving weirdly and was doing funky things. So that's what we're trying to figure out with this new preview that is supposed to be improving that situation. So let's see what happens then. So we got a new project here, and one of the few things that we have been fixing is the fact that there was that new build page that's available here, but also the fact that now x86 is automatically selected by default. That's one of the things that would help. A few things with the Mac, so let's connect to that Mac. I'm not updating the version of my Mac for now because I'm using two versions of Visual Studio, so I'm letting it just connect with whatever version is there. We're actually going to be seeing if it still runs with 16.10. Trying to fake a little bit and see if it still runs. It still connects, so that's pretty good. So that's one of the good things. So you don't have to reinstall. You can just skip the update. So now what we want to see is if we open a XAML page there, what happens. So we're on the WPF head. And if we let the Visual Studio do its magic, what should we have here? So nothing here. So this is not doing anything. Let's see if we go to other targets. Okay, so there's that issue. Oh, that's okay. So that's a new one. So that one is fixed in the latest template. So you see the list of templates of projects here is not the complete one. Probably don't have the latest templates installed in that Visual Studio instance, and this is a Visual Studio build that I use specifically for the streams. So let's try to do this. We're going to close the solution and open it back again and see if that fixes that properly. So now we have the full list. Okay, And if we go to, let's try with iOS first. So what do we see? We see that, oh, well, would you look at that? So that is pretty nice. So what's changed is that beforehand, before in previous version of Visual Studio, the grid here would have said that the element is not known, and that the page would not discover properly that the fact that there's an implicit element that's on page, which is called content, that would have been assigned automatically to that. And that is working properly. So you have the IntelliSense working here, and you have a few things here, and even have the properties that are coming from iOS. So that one, for instance, is coming from iOS. So if I, let's say, hover over it, you can see that it's a UI view.accessibility label. So that's one way to get to features that are coming in from iOS directly from your XAML. So that's pretty good. So let's see if I try to add a stack panel. So okay, we even have IntelliCode. This is nice. So that is something that's built with AI models based on what they've discovered on GitHub using XAML. So that's something that populates automatically the proper names. So what do we have here? Now it suggests buttons, stack panel images. This is nice. Okay, let's see with content. And let's say if we want to create a content control, for instance, if we try to create a, that's a bit too much, content control.content. This is good. So it suggests to add a few other things. So that's a stack panel. Interesting. Still no squiggly. So we're going to take a look at that squiggly afterwards. So it's probably not finding resources, but that's something that we probably can hint that the runtime to work on. So there's on content control, there's another type of property that's always of interest, is to set the content template, the control template. So there it is. And if we say control, it suggests control template explicitly. That's the only type that's available. Suggests target type as well. And we should probably have a content for our control here. It doesn't suggest anything here. Probably we could hint it at giving some proper elements there, but let's see. So here we're probably going to have to do something about it because it doesn't know what to do with control template, so it doesn't know what to provide underneath. That's a good thing. So good news. It means that 16.10 is improving the situation a lot. Which means that especially when you're on iOS, it does work properly and gives you a few things. So let's go before we take a look at the theme resource. Let's go take a look at the other targets. So let's go on Android. What does Android say? Same thing. So same thing for Android. Same thing with the theme resource for now, which is good. And let's say WebAssembly for now. Does it do something? Okay, so WebAssembly doesn't show anything. So it's only for iOS and Android, which is good. Maybe macOS. Let's see macOS. Oh, macOS works as well. So it's disabled for WebAssembly and maybe Skia GTK. Let's see, just Skia GTK. Okay, it's disabled for just Skia GTK. So we have some improvements there. We have iOS, Android, and macOS that do now have IntelliSense working properly. So that's pretty nice. So now let's take a look at the theme resources. What does it suggest? Nothing here. And if we suggest a static resource, okay, it doesn't recognize static resources. Okay, static resource doesn't know what to do with it. And if we create one here, what happens? Create a resource. Let's create a solid color brush, for instance, with a. So it doesn't know about key. That's another thing to know. And we say color is red. And let's see if we can use that here. So no, it doesn't recognize static resources like it would on Windows. So if we go on Windows, we can see here that the UWP head. And here the test resource has been recognized, and I can go to definition here. It will automatically go to the line 10. So this is interesting. So this is improvements. Probably going to open some additional issues to track, but this is very encouraging. So yay for for the new version of Visual Studio. That's pretty good. Okay, so so now we can go over to the Skia Fiddle. So this is the application that I've been working on stream. So to show what we can do with the Uno platform, and try some new things with .NET 5 and well, actually .NET 6 now, and a few of the new features that have been added. Okay, so Skia Fiddle. So last time we were able to launch the application, and the design was completely messed up. So that's probably one of the things that I did. So the main page was having something that was not that much interesting, and the content was just everything was put on top of each other, which is not particularly interesting. So the button for compile was not good. So the idea here is to have the canvas here for Skia on the side, and to have some code that we can compile by clicking that button, and that updates the UI here immediately. So the idea is that you can basically have test your Skia content directly. So that's one of the interesting parts. So probably, depending on what we can do, we're probably going to be able to take a look at adding, let's say, support for, let's say, the Monaco editor here, for instance. We can take a look at that. Okay, so the button here is not at the right place, and it should have been placed at the top. So my text box here should be on the grid row 1, and my content at the top should be on the grid row 0. And what do I have there? It's probably doing something funky here. So I had that. So this here, my button. So that's better. So I put the height of that one at auto so that it sits at the top. And we can start again our application. So I'm keeping the UWP head for now, just for IntelliSense. But yeah, since we do not have, so this is 1610, but we still do not have the IntelliSense running for the WebAssembly side. So that's probably something that we'll be able to update maybe in additional preview versions of Visual Studio. Okay, so let's take a look at a few things. This is .NET 5. We have a few things here. Okay, so that's good. So let's try to run that application. So I've been updating the support and working with the Microsoft team to improve the support for AOT and the tooling that's generating Visual Studio generating WebAssembly content, and it's moving quite well, and we're going to be able to move the needle when with regards to providing AOT support for more complex applications. So it works for smaller applications, but there are a few things that are missing. You want to see Mike, so you want to see WebAssembly upload working. Well, that's something that's coming from Martin. Martin's working on that, and it should be available pretty soon. Let's take a look. I'm not even sure. So we've been doing quite a few things, and I think Martin has been updating that. We can take a look at that. So we have what we're calling the Uno samples app staging. This isn't the application that's running completely. That's running as part of the CI for the Uno platform. So every build, every PR that merges inside of the master at Uno produces that application. This is an application that's not that fancy. It's just an application that allows us to test all the behaviors of the application. So you will find many of the controls that are available here. And if you want to test out a few very specific things, most of the time we have a sample that's running there, so you can test that one out. And I want to make sure that we have something like that. So we have Windows storage, file picker test. Let's see. Can we pick a file? Nope, it's not available yet. So I think we had it's still coming up. So Martin's probably going to be updating that soon. But the idea is that once it works, you're going to be able to do pick single here, and it's going to open a file for you. So you can see here that when I click the pick single, you have the member file type filter is not implemented in Uno for the WebAssembly head. So that's why we're not seeing anything when doing this. Save picker. So that's a new document, and I think so the save picker has been implemented. So this one is working differently. So we can pick single. I don't know what that one does. I don't recall. Probably you have not implemented that part yet as well. So there's quite a few things that have been provided. So that one has been implemented for other platforms, but not for WebAssembly yet. So that's one of the things that that is working on. So yeah, we do know that it's holding back people, so that's why we've been working on adding support for it, because if you have an application and you can only provide external content, that's not a good idea. But that's the idea. So we're working on it. Should be available quite soon. So let's see what's happening in our application here. So it's still building. It probably was there's a few things that the linker is doing. So I'm also taking a look at the performance of the linker. There's quite a few things that are running there, and Microsoft knows that there's something that needs to be improved with regards to the use of the linker. But there are still a few things that make the linker run every time that makes it a bit too slow. So that's one of the things that will improve in the future. So let's go back to all that. So yeah, that's the only thing we can have here. And if you haven't taken a look at that application, it'll say, for instance, you can see here that the buttons are square, and if you click the FL button here, it means for fluent. And if you refresh the page, you'll see that the buttons are now rounded. So that's the idea. We can change the behavior of the application by overriding the styles by using that button here. And so if we unclick that button and refresh, then the buttons become again square. So that's what we're doing here. So let's take a look again. If you haven't followed, if you weren't there in the previous stream, so you can find out what the Bootstrapper is doing. And if you do a PSAX, just one, you can see what it's running. So in here, it's running the linker. So again, and I think that was one of the problems. I think the linker is running twice, which is a bit of a problem. It's not supposed to run twice, and it's something that needs to be adjusted. The Bootstrapper has been built quite a while back, and it was not. The linker was not a problem that much, so it went under the radar. So that's something that we may be able to take a look at before we go to the rest. Okay, so did it build? I think it built. Oh, freezing Visual Studio. Let's see. Does it stop at some point? Let's hope so. Okay, so we have that. So in the on the other things that we can look at in that application. Oh, it's starting. Okay, so let's take a look at what we have here. Okay, so we have the compilation here. We have a single line stuff that's not supposed to be here, and we have a button here. So when we click the compile button, what do we have? So the compile button is taking that code here and is compiling it to do something else. So the idea is that we're trying to determine why all this is not doing what it's supposed to be doing. So we can see here messages that are coming from the compiler. And those messages are saying that _sharp cannot be found, system object cannot be found. That's a problem. And so those types are from Skia. So let's take a look at that one first. So system object cannot be found. That one means that the assembly that's supposed to be providing support for .NET, so for a system object is not available. And that one is coming from an assembly that's called System Private Runtime Corelib. But I'm surprised that it's not available here. So maybe it's something that we missed somewhere. So let's see if that file is integrated properly. So what we can find out first is that file located in the file system properly? There's two ways to find that one out. The first one is taking a look at the assembly itself and determining if the file that contains a predefined type here is available. But another one that's available is to go to the application tab and look at the IndexedDB. So let's see. Oh, actually those files are loaded in memory directly. Now I'm gonna show you that one. So those files are loaded by the compiler here, and the compiler is basically loading the files that are in the manifest, but using a create stream. So those files are loaded in memory explicitly. So there's nothing very interesting there with regards to providing that access. Okay, so what that means is that this is not the right, this may not be the right one, because the files are there, and I think Skia# is available here, and I'm wondering if it's not related to that dash. So let's take a look at the file that has been generated as part of the build. So if we go to this folder and package and the manage folder, we're going to find all the CLR files, and we're going to open the file that we need, which is what's the name of it? It's the Uno Skia# something. Skia# fiddle. Okay, so you can see that the file is pretty large. It's 16 megabytes, and for good reason, because it contains all the files that are coming from the .NET SDK. It's something that will change. We'll change that after a while, so we can take a look at that afterwards. But for now, let's take a look at the files themselves. And you will notice that the file here was .NET-SDK, and it's been transformed into a .NET_SDK, which is why when we're trying to load those files here, it fails because we don't find the right ones. So let's do this. Let's change that and let's try again. So that's one of the things that we can take a look at. And oh, before I finish the build, let's stop it. I think it was doing MS build. Yeah, it's running on something else. Well, I don't have the task kill at hand, but there it is. Cancelled. Okay, so I want to change the text box that we had here so that it can show that on multiline. So it's not multiline here, it's accept return. If you set it to true, then the content will be on multiple lines. So let's build that again and see where we can go. So this fails for yes. You have to close ILSpy, otherwise it cannot rebuild properly. Okay, so let's let it build. So we can take a look at very quickly at another part of the build process, which is a reason why we have two linker steps running at the same time. So this one is this one. So we're going to be opening the Uno Bootstrapper. And the Bootstrapper is quite interesting. I don't think I have it here. Probably have it here. Nope. We have it here. Then it's going to be the Uno Bootstrapper, which is probably somewhere. Uno Wasm Bootstrap. There it is. I'm probably going to pin it at the top, so because I'm going to be opening it multiple times. So I'm going to close it again and let it do its job. Okay. It's one of the features that I use quite a bit, pinning stuff up at the top for a project that I open a lot. Okay, so let's open the Bootstrapper again. So I've been working on some things to improve the performance. So I'm just going to be putting that on the side for now. And we're going to take a look at the Bootstrapper itself and see how that works. So while it's running, and we can see here that it's probably doing something else. Let's take a look at the CPU. Yeah, some Visual Studio. Is it really building? No, it failed. Okay, so it failed again. So why is it failing again? Okay. Okay. Okay, that's much better. Okay, so if we take a look at the Bootstrapper, the idea is that we have an MS build task that's in the uno.wasm.bootstrap project, and inside you're going to find the shell task. And in there, you're going to find lots of things, but the idea is that we're generating the website automatically, but each step, one step at a time, by preloading assemblies, parsing properties, getting the BCL, creating the dis folder, copy the content, runtime, run the packager. So the packager is a mono tool that we ported over to .NET 6. And until we wait for the MS build tasks that are going to be provided by the Microsoft team, the .NET team. So that's kind of temporary. We're deploying the debugger, extracting JS and CSS files, generating configs, doing service workers for other types of, let's say, offline work and other things like that. And a few other things like compressing the dis folder so that you can have faster downloads with broadly pre-compression. So that's the kind of steps that we're running as part of the Bootstrapper. But when we're looking at what's happening in the Bootstrapper, there's actually a few things that are happening, and especially when running the packager, it's actually running twice. And I'm not sure if we need that anymore. So we can see here that if we are running without AOT, we need the packager to just take the files that we have and just drop them into the dis folder. But if we don't have that, we need to, if we use AOT, we need to run the packager in a different mode that uses mscripten, that generates a few set of files like generating the pinvoke layer and things like that are needed by WebAssembly. And one thing that may not be needed anymore is that double execution of the packager. So maybe we can take that one out and just run it only if the full packager is not needed. So we can actually probably take that one out. So we determine if we need the full packager using do we not force the disable of WSL, or if we're using AOT, or if we have bitcode files, or if WSL is forced. So that's the kind of things that are needed to understand if we need the full packager. So again, the full packager is all about running mscripten and generating more WebAssembly things or using native files. So that's one of the reasons when we're creating the file here with Skia, we're using Skia, which is a native library, and it comes up as a bitcode file. So that's why we're going to that step of using the full packager. So one thing that we can do is trying to determine if we can avoid having that linker run twice. So maybe we can go and take that and put that to the part where we don't need it, which is the second side, the second part of this. So we can take a look at that and see if it works. So to understand if something is working properly or not, we have a lot of tests that are available as part of the Uno platform, the Bootstrapper. so we can determine if what we're doing is still working. So for instance, we have here a test for static linking. So we're going to take a look at what that sample is doing and if it's working properly. So let's try it out. So we're rebuilding this and see how far we can go. So to be sure that, I don't think, do we have, no, we don't have the, so we're gonna have to install that as well. I thought I had that. So it's the MS Build tooling. So if we go to manage extensions, we have the project system tools. Download that and install that on that instance. So it's going to be available for the next one. Okay, so why does it fail? It says that some files are not available. So see, so from the get-go, there's a few things that are not working properly. So the fact that we're running the packager once first makes it for something that are not running properly. So there's probably a few things that we need to still make run at the beginning of the steps here. So let's do that again. That would mean that instead of the packager running here, we're probably doing a bit too much. And my guess would be that we're probably passing too much with mscripten files. But to understand that, we're going to be having to enable the logging to see what's happening really. Okay, so the build worked. So let's go to our sample again and see what happens. So we have the compile and we click the compile button, what happens? Okay, so nothing yet. So let's go see in the console what happened. Okay, so nothing happened, but no errors. So this means that the compilation, oh, actually it worked. It's blue. So it means that we're not refreshing. So that's something that we have to adjust. So if it's blue, that means that the code that we had here actually ran properly and was compiled properly and then loaded properly inside of the application running. And then that the type here was loaded properly, and then we got the code that is executing here. So let's see if I do red instead, what happens? Okay, ooh, fancy. So it's running. So we have code that uses C# inside of the browser using .NET 5, 6 actually now, and that updates that content here. So let's see if it works. That means that we can go and improve that a little bit and see if we do a little bit more. So let's open another solution and see in the samples. I think we had one with a bit more content there. So let's go to the C# sample here. And if we don't have enough, we can go to the samples that Matthew Leibowitz has been building for C# itself. And there are quite a few samples there that are pretty fancy. So we're going to take a look at those samples to see if that works properly. But this is pretty encouraging. Okay. So we got in the main page here, we got a few things here. So let's take, I don't think we can take all this, but actually maybe. So not in the Bootstrapper. So in C# Fiddle here, when we run the application, we have a few things. We have a surface, but I don't think we have enough information for the size of the surface. So we're probably going to have to change that to provide something that allows us to kind of put something in the middle. So if we take a look at the code that I have here, it uses a canvas and size to position something in the middle. So we have a few things here, like getting the display information and scale. Okay, so what we need is to add a size parameter and a few other things. Okay. So let's change that. So I'm just going to commit that. working version. So I'm gonna push this to GitHub. So if you're interested in taking a look at the code and make your own version of the C# fiddle if you want. But in the meantime, let's go and modify that. So what we have here is so we did what we did last time. Oh, currently unavailable due to an internal error. That's an interesting one. Okay. So what we did is we have, when we load this, when we go and search for the paint method, and the paint method, its signature must match the action surface we have here. So basically those two must match. But if we want to do something with regards to size, then let's do something like size, for instance. So the size here is one that comes from Windows Foundation size. So let's do this instead. Oh boy, that's annoying. Compiler services, code lens reference service. Okay, that's going to make it for an interesting report. Okay, so we're doing this foundation size and size. So that's our new signature, and we have to change that signature so that we're calling the signature properly. So that we'll find here. So we have a new action surface. Actually, we probably should be naming that one to something that makes more sense, but let's do that afterwards. Actually, let's do it now. So we're talking about a private delegate. So it's void, and we're going to be calling it Skia refresh handler, which takes a surface and size, and our handler is going to be that one, and we're going to be using it twice, one here for after the create delegate, and one inside, so we can ask for the delegate to have the proper signature. And finally, what we're going to do is change this. So the actual invocation of the method that we created from the assembly that we loaded from the code that was compiled on Roslyn. That's a lot. And we're going to create a new size with arg dot, don't recall what that one is. We have surface info. And it's not providing, so IntelliSense is not working. It's probably related to that error that I have at the top. Probably going to have to fall back to VS 2019 for now, because it looks like there are a few things that are not working. So so it works somehow. IntelliSense works, but the pop-up doesn't show up. Okay. Yeah, the control space doesn't work. Okay. So there's that. So we have the updated unpaint surface, which calls the code that we have generated. So that's pretty good. And that's it. So we have the updated code now. Okay, so let's start again. So now we're going back to the Bootstrapper to understand why the application is doing what it's doing. I don't know. I think I'm going to try to open it in the other version of Visual Studio that I have, so 16.9, which is here, so that we have the updates that I needed. I don't know if it's going to try to install it properly. I think it's going to try to install it on a Visual Studio that's still running. Oh well, it seems to install it anyway, so that's pretty good. So we'll see if that updates properly. So the build is running, so that's fine. And our update is doing well here. I really don't know what they're doing behind the scenes. I mean, it's copy of files, but it's probably something additional that we're not seeing here that makes it that long to start up, to do the installation. So okay, so now we have that new add-in that has been installed. We're going to open the Bootstrapper again and see where we can go with that. Okay. So what we're trying to find out here is that is the linker running twice? So that could be because it looks like it looked like when we're running with PGAOT or something else, it looked like it was running twice, but we're going to try to find that one out. So that's why I installed the tooling for the build logging. So now I do have build logging here that's available in other windows. And I'm just going to put that at the bottom. And I'm going to record everything that's happening in the build during the build time here. Let's see what happens now. So what we're trying to find out is that is that project running too much? Is when the Bootstrapper is building, is it doing multiple things at the same time? And maybe not. Maybe that's something that we can try to troubleshoot and determine if the first invocation of the packager here that I just missed, run packager. So we have the full packager. So that packager here, so the first run process here of the packager, is it running when it should, or we can do something else? Okay, so the build ran properly, and if I run the application, I'm probably going to get probably nothing. Okay, so we got a few things here. So it's test strings that we're using during the CI to determine if the runtime is doing what it's supposed to be doing. But let's see. So we got the wasm tuner that worked. We got PJOT rebuild that worked. So 19 seconds. So let's open that in the amazing bin log viewer. We're going to try to find the build this. So this is the target that does the compilation to WebAssembly and generation of the this folder and all of that. And it's running for 18 seconds. So, okay, so what we can see here is that it didn't show up that much. And one of the reasons for this is that the debug level, the logging level in Visual Studio is not at the right at the right height. So let's change that. So in Project and Solutions, we have the build and run section, and that section has a build log verbosity. So you need to put it to diagnostics, otherwise you won't have enough content there. So now we can build that project again. So I'm not going to build everything because I don't want to have to kill MS Build. So parts of that are loaded by Visual Studio or MS Build, and we're going to try to see if we don't need to do some MS Build killing first. So is it still building? No. So that means that it finished, but for some reason it's freezing at the end. Okay. Okay. So if we compile, do we have some blue? No, we don't. So what did break? Let's see. Okay, so it failed because of the Windows type could not be found. Okay, so it means that we don't have access to size, width, and height for now. I don't want to include Uno in the portion here, so we're gonna just pass width and height as two values. So let's do this instead. Int width and int height. I'm going to change that afterwards and include Uno, but for now it's gonna let's make it simpler. Width and height. So the reason for this is that the Uno assembly itself is not available as part of the compiler available assemblies. So to fix that, we could include the assemblies for Uno itself as well, but let's limit the scope for now. So instead of doing this, we're going to be doing just that. Okay, so let's build it again and see how far we can go. Okay, so if we go back to the Bootstrapper, the build worked. And in the builds here, we had 19 seconds as well. So let's open it again into the AOT, the build log viewer. We have the build dist again. You can see here that for some reason, okay, so that's good. So we can see more information. That's good. We can see lots of file manipulations and copies and content files. We can see that there's a first part that is copied over. So this is all of the files like the bindings, core binding support, libICU, and a few other pinvoke stuff, plus a DLL that will probably have to change place because the .NET team changed the location of that. So now we have to adjust that as we go. So this is setup from scripting for 2012. So this is running properly. So this is installed correctly, skipping install. And then we're running the Bootstrapper once. Okay, so this is the first run of the Bootstrapper. So if we press space, we can see here that we're running the packager here with all those files. So those are dependencies that are provided as part of .NET 5. And the packager needs that to determine what needs to be linked, what needs to be adjusted, how to generate pinvokes and other parts like that. And so that's the first one. And so it runs properly and it runs for about a second. That's not too bad. It runs for about a second. And then we're running again the packager second time. This time it runs for a second. That's copy. So we're running here. So we're running, and then we're running Ninja. So there's three parts. So we're running the packager twice. In first one here, second time here, and then we're running Ninja. So the way the build is done is that the packager generates a file that the Ninja build tooling is able to do. So we can take a look at that Ninja file here at the end. When we take a look at the Bootstrapper, it's in the opt folder. We're in debug net 6. We had a work AOT folder, and then we have a build.ninja file that's generated by the packager. And all this is running the AOT compiler, running mscripting here like that, running the IL linker manually. So running the IL linker. So if that part is run twice, then that could be a problem. So that's something that we need to be able to look out for. So that's one of the things that are of interest. And by the looks of it, the linker only runs when Ninja is run. So that means that there's something else that we're doing in the application that we're having that takes a while, but that is inside of the packager that takes time. So that means that the packager itself is probably having some trouble with something that we're giving that it's not accepting properly. So probably going to have to figure that one out. And the packager is available here. It's available as part of the uno.wasm, the packager. And it's actually a derivative of the packager that's available in Mono. That's not used in .NET Runtime for now, and it's probably not going to be used ever. but it's going to be remastered as something else, as a set of build tasks instead of using Ninja. So it wouldn't make sense. It would not have made sense that the .NET tooling would have used an additional tooling where there's no need to, that it can run using MS Build completely. So our app is running. So let's compile that and see if we have an update. So I can, okay. So if I resize the window, it runs. So we're going to have to fix that as well. So we have that, and we have the width and the height. So if we take the code that's coming from the Skia test here, I probably can't use most of that. We're going to be using width and height directly. So let's take that and put that inside here. So we have, I'm probably gonna have to change the font as well. So that's why using Monaco would be of interest. So using the Visual Studio Code ID instead of using a text block would be quite interesting. So in here we have an SK surface. So there's a canvas inside of the surface. So we can just do, and so we can take a look at the way it was written originally. So Skia is using surface.canvas, and we have a canvas directly. So in our sample here, so let's move that to do surface.canvas. And we're going to replace that at every other location. Surface.canvas, canvas. So the SK point here is not the right one. We can use width and height directly. The paint text size is probably the right one, and the text is not the right one. We can say, hello, live coding Tuesday. And chord is the right one. Paint is probably the right one. So if we build that, do we have something that shows up? So no, it doesn't work because we have probably an error of the compilation error. So we got 3 diagnostics, and the error is that the name scale is not available and color is not available. So that's probably right. So color here is not the right one. So we're going to take SK color here, and we're going to put some light blue. And we're going to remove the density here for now because it's not particularly useful. And we get 1 diagnostic. Probably something that doesn't cause any trouble, probably just a warning. And we got an assembly and a main method. And if I resize my, ooh, okay, that's very nice. So we get some text showing up as part of the updated content here. So that's pretty cool. So that's very nice. So on the other updates that we can take, so let's I'm just gonna copy that one as a. I'm gonna save that one for next time, so we can have that. We're probably gonna add let's say a combo box that has some samples that we know of. So let's go take a look at some Skia samples. So in the Skia repo, there's a samples folder with a gallery, and that gallery has a shared folder with a lot of samples there. And so for instance, you have bitmap, blur, color table, image filters. Let's take one that doesn't need resources. That one doesn't need resources. We can probably take that one directly. So let's use that one and see if it works. But it should. It should. So let's replace that content here. So we said it's not canvas, but surface.canvas. And surface.canvas as well. So the rest is the right one. So if we compile again, we got a main method again. And what do we have? Berlin noise. Okay, so it's working well. So we have something that's running pretty well. So that means that we can have some C# code on the side that's built by the Roslyn compiler that uses Skia to render content that's on the side. And that code is evaluated on every change on window size. You probably do something like if we click on it or something like that, that would be something of interest. If you have ideas of how to improve that sample and do interesting things with it, you probably mouse moves would be of interest. So that would be interesting. So what we're gonna do is take a look again at the Bootstrapper, not the Bootstrapper, but the build time of this, and see why it takes that much time and where that time is spent, because there's obviously something that doesn't work properly. So let's do this. If I, let's see, do I have access to the other windows? Most likely not. So let's restart that one, because I just installed the application. So I just installed the logging tooling. So it's not available in the instance that was already running. So let's restart it. So we get that. And so let's go back to our Gear Sharp fiddle and let's start it again and see how far we can go and see what kind of issues we're finding here. So what could happen is that there's so many files that are provided as part of the build that some part of the packager is not working properly. So that could be one possible explanation, but it's best if we see it as part of the build logging. So let's do this. Other windows, build logging. So let's start the recording and let's start a bit again. So we can see it's running. So it's going to take a minute or two. So it's not something that we can see right now, but we can take a look at what the packager does. So the packager is actually quite complicated. It's not complicated. It's doing things that are not that complex, but it's doing lots of stuff. Lots of options and features that are available there. So the main is here. So it runs a driver. And the run of the driver is doing lots of things. So you get to see all the parameters that are there, like a building, LTO, icall linking, pgen, invoke, lots of interesting things that are available here. We're not using all of them, but some of them. But that would mean that somewhere in there's one of the steps that is taking too much time. And if I were to guess, without debugging it, for now at least, we're going to be able to do that using the override and using a new version of the Bootstrapper of the packager manually, because all the files are available. If I were to guess, it would be that step. So it's basically something that takes all the assemblies that are available as part of the top level. So when we build, we pass in one assembly. It's generally the main assembly. And then the packager is trying to determine all the assemblies that are available as part of that root assembly. And it's doing quite a few things. And namely, it's parsing the framework and resolving facades, and it's listing files many times. And it could be that there's too much to resolve, and it's actually spending too much time browsing the file system. So for instance, it's using a method that's called try, and it's getting full path and trying to find a file exists. So maybe it's that step that's doing too much work. So we're going to be able to find that one out and try to add more logging there to see if we can troubleshoot that additionally. So so it's still building. We can see that the build logging step here is interesting. We've got the start and lapse. So And one of the things that is interesting is that in using AOT is that we can measure the build time pretty easily and have an history of the build time. So that's pretty nice because when you rebuild, you don't have that history here. You know, the output just gives you the current build, not the other ones. So not the previous ones. So now with this, you get the current build plus the previous ones. Okay, so that's that. So in the Bootstrapper, so that would be my first guess. Let's see if there's another method with that resolution that would be causing some trouble. So there was something about determining if the file is something. I think there it is. There it is. Okay, so there is an import method, and that import method is using Cecil to search for folders and trying to read modules and try to determine if the file has symbols and it could be that for some reason that that step is doing too much work and listing files multiple times where it should only be doing it once. So that's something that we could be taking a look at. Okay, so it freezed again. This is good, so that means it's the end. So we can take a look at the log. I'm going to be reporting that. So they changed the reporting feature when you click in here, when you send feedback. Now it's using a web version of the previous tool that was inside of Visual Studio. I don't dislike it, but you know, it feels odd to have a web page communicate to your Visual Studio. I mean, it works, but you know, there's probably a very good reason they did that. But you know, it looks like a complex architecture to maintain the state between the web page and the Visual Studio instances running on your machine. Okay, so it took. Okay, so now we have the time. 250 seconds. So let's take a look at where the time was spent. So in the project graph here, we have the timeline, and we can see that the shell task took 4 minutes to run. And now let's go take a look at the content here. Okay, so lots of copies. Copying lots of files to the output, but that's expected. That's the SDK. Then we're running Ninja already. Okay, so that's Ninja already. So running Ninja once. So it's showing lots of stuff. So 1 minute here, the linker. So it took 1 minute. Okay, so Ninja took about a minute to do things, probably file copies or some things. It looks like file copies. And then there's the linker that runs for 1 minute to 1 minute to interesting. So the full length is 1 minute and 30 seconds. So unless there's something else additional at the end, could be. So that means that we're still missing quite a few minutes there. So the length of the execution here was about 4 minutes. So that means that there's something in between that took more time that we couldn't see. And the problem is that those are not absolute times. So that means that there may be times that we don't see. Like for instance, we're running the packager. Maybe there's something that is happening that we don't see. Well, that one is running for a minute and okay, so that one's running for a minute and 14 seconds. So that means that between the time we start the packager here with the run process, the first message It's happening after 1 minute and 14 seconds. So that means that the packager is doing something for a very long time, and it's probably not right. So that's something that we're probably gonna have to troubleshoot. I don't know if we're gonna do that next week, because we're probably gonna have to fix it in between, because it takes too much time, and that's not acceptable. But that gives you an idea. So in between those two, there's something that's happening that should not be there, and we're gonna have to fix that. So that's it. That's it for today. That was interesting. We found quite a few things. And hello, okay. So we found out that we can do we can have that thing running properly, and then get the rest running for the rest. We got the ski of sharp fiddle running properly, and then get the rest showing up properly in the surface. So I hope you've enjoyed it as much as I did. This is quite fun, and let's take a look again at the rest of this next week, and hopefully spend less time waiting for the Bootstrapper to finish compiling and doing some linker stuff when not needed. Yeah. Yeah, maybe I'll add an icon for the fire hose sometime. So till next week, happy coding, and see you next time.